When's the official start? Have we officially started, or do you want to do an official start?
We can leave it at officially started. So from the time that somebody says, I would like to make this at one of the pitch meetings, I guess you have, how does that get to in my hand? You know, like that's a long process, but
I'll take the process. It obviously varies from project to project.
Mm-hmm.
So a freight car is this, and a locomotive is this. Right?
Yeah.
So some are very easy.
Mm-hmm.
There are some freight cars where somebody says, we have a meeting the first Tuesday of every month. We all are together on Zoom, and we have our project meeting. And that's when we sort of spitball, right? We say, what do we want to make next? What do we want to make after that? And usually from that meeting, there will be at least, some projects get repeated every meeting until they're done. Right? But generally, there'll be like at least 1 or 2 new projects that are mentioned for the first time at the meeting. And by the next meeting a month later, they're already like halfway through the design. Okay. And those would be, the freight cars are very easy for that because there's a lot of blueprints out there that are very complete for freight cars. And they're in collectors' hands and they're in museums' hands. And we know a lot of museums, we know a lot of collectors, et cetera. So we can get a hold of those blueprints very easy. I'm just going to put my computer on Do Not Disturb while we're talking and just realize that we might get interrupted. So hang on a second. You can leave this in there because I'm a human being like everybody else.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it's really a matter of one of our project designers either says, I want to design that, or we all agree with the project and they say, okay, you're going to design that because I want to design it, but I haven't got time, but you do.
Yeah.
Not me. Other designer will say, because we've got like, there's Dan Darnell, there's Bill Schneider, there's John Sheridan, there's Josh Anderchek, there's Bobby Allard, there's another guy I can't mention yet. So we've got all these project designers, and they all, obviously, if you're passionate about a particular model, you want to be the one to design it. But it's also sometimes you have to say, hang on, I want to make this, but I haven't got time to design it right now. So it'll go on to somebody else. So the first thing that we do is get all the research material together. Now, that is a big issue. If we haven't got the research material, we can't make the model, right? Or if we are going to make the model, it's a heck of a lot more work. So like the turbo liner, the Roar turbo liner, which as we're speaking is just about to go into the mold shop, that is a very difficult project because the blueprints we have are very incomplete. So we actually had to go to a turbo liner in New Jersey. We had to measure everything. We had to take 1 million photographs. And the design process is much slower when we have no, if we've got good blueprints, and some blueprints, by the way, are incorrect, but if we have good blueprints, it's very quick. So the project designer will either trace the blueprints, if it's a situation where the real freight car, for example, had a whole bunch of different changes, you can't just rely on you can't send the blueprints to the factory. They generally do a 2D trace of the blueprints and then take those drawings and send them to the factory along with a package full, it's a PDF with, as many photos as we can find. Often it involves going to the freight car and going underneath, or finding someone we know who's near a freight car, especially if it's an old retired model. They can go underneath and take pictures of all the ribbing and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Photos of the trucks and all the brake lines and everything. And then that goes to China. And then we have an engineering team at both of our 2 factories. We have 2 engineering teams, and they will then design the 3D HO or N scale model from that information we send them. But there's still a lot of interpretation involved. So they'll send it back to us. We'll go back and forth. We'll say, you misinterpreted this. That should not be as come out so far from the model. That door track is too thick or too thin or whatever it is, right? For a freight car, you can get a freight car from handing the documents to the factory to being finished in about 4 weeks. That's reasonable. A locomotive can take 6 months. Okay, but a freight car can just take a few weeks. And then once we've got the drawings from the factory, we have a team review at Rapido. So you'll have at least 3. I also Craig Walker doesn't do project design, but he does research and project management with us. So Craig's always in these review meetings. He's very experienced along those lines. So it's usually Craig and a designer and 1 or 2 other people will actually go over it with a fine-tooth comb, and we'll compare the 3D design to photographs and drawings of the real thing to make sure we didn't miss anything.
Yeah.
We have enough expertise, because we're all rail fans and modelers here. So we have enough expertise. Any model, any prototype you pick, you're going to have at least 2 people who know something about it. Right? And then actually having a third who doesn't know anything about it but can look at the photos, that's actually really helpful, and say, guys, you got rivets there. There's definitely no rivets over here. Right? And even though they're not an expert on that car, it's like, oh my God, we didn't notice that. We were so caught up in the blueprints, we didn't notice that in the prototype. They didn't rivet that part. Right? So that's an example. So then we get final corrections to the factory, and then we send it to the mold shop. So we've now got a finished 3D design. Sometimes we announce projects to the public with a 3D design. Other times we wait till we have samples, right? Sometimes we don't even have a 3D design yet. We announced the PAs when we did the 3D scan. We were like months away from even going into tooling for that. And now as we speak, there's a sample en route from the factory to us, right? So that's like, it's over a year since we announced that project. That's how long it can take. Tracing the 3D scan and doing all that. The locomotives take a lot longer. So say this mythical freight car we're designing that's now gone to the mold shop. So the mold factory, we work with 3 mold factories. And the reason that Rapido can bring out so many models is that we work directly with our mold factories. Most manufacturers in North America, they work through either an agent or their assembly factory will subcontract the work to the mold factory and add on a big profit. One factory recently reached out to us and said, we'd like to make some models for you. And their tooling quote was like 40% higher than I hadn't quote a car we made already. I hadn't quote the FlexiFlows. His tooling was like 40% higher than we paid, because he was getting the same price we paid and he was adding a 40% margin on top, giving us a profit, right? So that's why Rapido has so much in tooling at one time. So the mold guys, they will design the molds and remember, the mold is like a reverse of your model, right? So they're designing this big steel molds, and it takes about 2 months to get a first sample. That's how long it takes to get a first sample. The first sample comes in. Do I have any? Here's a sample.
Oh.
Well, it's an old model. This is actually, it's not a first sample. It's a second sample of the FA2s. This was before we brought out the models. And I mean, here's the finished thing. Very handy, right? So you got a sample here, undecorated, tape on it, explaining what it is. You can see the etched metal bits and stuff, right? And then there's the finished model quite a bit later over here. So we get that first sample, and then we find issues with it. And the first sample generally doesn't have any rivets. Anything that is little fine detail won't be on it, because that's the last thing you do. If you find a major problem, like you've got a window in the wrong place, that's really easy to fix before you put the rivets on.
Yeah.
So we often, in our videos, we'll paint up a sample, but if you look closely, there's no rivets on the sample, because we're using that first sample and we're adding a whole bunch of detail bits from our spare parts box and making it look pretty, and painting it and filming it, right? Because we want to get people like to see a painted sample. They don't want an undecorated. Sometimes they do, but usually they like a painted sample. So we've got the sample. It's generally another, I'd say, month or 2 of going back and forth on fixing that sample and then getting the final one that's got all the corrections. In a wonderful, in best case scenario, this is a British bus that's very near and dear to my heart. It's from Birmingham, England. And this one, the first sample was perfect except for rivets. So all we had to do was add the rivets. Right? So that was really quick. If we discover that, what will often happen is we'll get the sample, hold it, and say, something looks wrong. And then we'll realize the blueprints were wrong, or a mistake went through that we didn't catch, and we'll have to actually make a modification on the mold. The mold factories hate making modifications on the mold, but it happens, right? And if you want to add a raised line, very easy. You just cut the line on the mold. If your raised line's in the wrong place, you've got to flood molten metal into that mold to get rid of it, and then polish it. And it's a mess. It's a pain in the rear. So say you've now got from that meeting that we talked about this project. It was a month and a half, 2 months of design work, 2 months of tooling. So we're now at least 4 months later, okay? And now we say, okay, it's ready to go. And then another month to 2 months of corrections on the tooling. We're 6 months later. All right, so 6 months from that meeting, we now are ready for production. In the process, we've launched it by now. We've taken pre-orders and all that stuff. So then we're ready to make it. We close the order desk with the public, and we say order it by X and so and so date, and then that way we know how many to make. We can't just guess, right? One of our factories has a lot of capacity after Chinese New Year, and so he says to me, "Send me the orders now, and I'll make sure I have enough material so that like right after Chinese New Year at the end of February, we just like jump into production." And I said, "That's great. The order deadlines for all that stuff is January 15th. I can give you the quantities January 20th. He's like, "Crap, that's too late." So it means he won't be able to get all those materials right away. They'll end up arriving a couple weeks later, March instead of late February. So it'll be a delay because we're not getting those numbers until the end of January. So that's why he can't order materials until he knows how many to make. So we've given the order numbers to the factory, and then generally they come back and scream at us. Because it's only when we give him the final numbers with the artworks that have all the different, and he says, "Oh my God, yeah, this has got so many detail parts on it. Why can't they all be the same?" Huang, one of our partners in China, is like, "It's all be the same. We'll make one style. We're gonna make one bus. They're all TTC and they're all the same." And we say, "No, you can't do that." So production depends on how many we're making.
Okay.
So this British bus, we only made 2,000 of these during our production run, 2,000 or so. It was done in a couple of months, quick. Okay, because the first month of production, nothing gets made. That's when they have to make the painting masks. That's when they have to make the printing plates. If you ever look at one of our factory videos, you'll see how the silicon pads pick up the ink on a steel plate, and they drop it on the model. Those are called tampo plates. We have to make those. We have to organize all production, order the materials. The injection factory has to make all the injection parts. Then you've got the etch metal parts have to come from the etch metal factory. All the circuit boards have to come from the circuit board factory. All that stuff. If it's got metal stamp parts like grab irons, we have to make metal stamping molds, and you have to stamp all those parts from the wire. It's all this stuff that needs to get done. So generally they won't start making models for the first month. So you can't like turn around a model instantly. And then after a month, all the materials in the factory, and then they've got to cut all the sprues, right? Got to cut 400 parts on a Rapido model. That's 400 parts being cut from sprues. So that's a lot of cutting. And order the screws, order all the materials, the wheels, etc. And then from there, they make them. So production, if it's if it's a big difference between making like a Horizon passenger car and making a boxcar. The Horizon passenger car has like twice as many parts, and it's so fiddly. There's lots of very small details underneath that take a long time to install. So it's a big production. It takes a much longer time to make a Horizon than it does to make a big car. So something could take a short time, a long time. Then when it's done, obviously throughout the process, we're getting them sending us color samples for us to check. They're sending us photos and videos from the factory all the time. And then they'll often send us, if depending on the project, if it's a rerun, don't worry about it. But if it's a new run or something, we'll want them to send finished pre-production samples, even if they're just shells, so we can check all the printing and all the painting before we finish production. And we finish production, it goes on a boat, it goes in a container, goes to the port, sits, because model trains are small. We rarely have a full container. Usually it's only about 6 pallets or something. Then it goes on the container to Prince Rupert, British Columbia, gets on a train, goes from Prince Rupert to Toronto, and then comes to us about 3 days after that. Okay. So it's the fastest you'll get something from that design meeting to having the finished models in your hand is about 8 or 9 months. Wow. But normally for us, a locomotive is about 2 years. Cool. A freight car can be less than a year. A passenger car depends on the car. Some can be quick. Most are a year to a year and a half.
How do you decide which features to have? Because that seems to be when you started making the marker lights, and then the marker lights that change color, and then the M420 has tri-color marker lights on each side. So how does that stuff evolve?
Features are determined by what we think is cool. Right? So there's a combination of what we want. We want to recreate everything the prototype has. But so it's a balance between what we want and what's feasible. There's a lot of stuff that isn't feasible. It's just not. We try to do it, and it's not. I mean, there was a train that we spent 2 years trying to figure out how to make the doors open. Okay, sliding doors. And after 2 years and 3D samples, and we finally gave up. We just said, we can't do it. It's just not feasible in a model to make this sliding door process without sacrificing all the interior. We have to lose the whole interior to make this sliding door, right? So do we want to do that? Do we want to lose the whole interior just to get the door to slide? So that was one of those types of conversations that we had, right? With lighting, people complain, why didn't you get this light to work? Well, there's no room in that cab for us to make 10 different lights work. We don't have enough room to fit those lights on the circuit board. We just can't do it. Or in other situations, we could do it, but you'd have to pay $500 for the model because it's going to take 8 times as long to assemble with all this magnet wire. Like we can't use magnet wire in mass production assembly. It's like hand wound magnet. You can do it on your workbench for your one engine, right? For us to do it on this mass produced model, that's going to take us forever. It's going to take as long as you did for your one engine. It'll take us that multiplied by 4,000, right? That took you a week. We don't have 4,000 weeks to make this model mass production.
I never realized that magnet wire wasn't feasible in like a production setting. I always thought it was something that would be easier if anything else, you know?
I'm talking about hand assembling tiny little things. When you think about the fact, and we have done it, like I think we've got magnet wire in our rotary beacons, and they are a pain in the rear. They really are. In fact, we had a situation where we delivered. I couldn't even notice this when looking at them at the factory. I was looking at them, but the factory looked fine under factory lighting. They'd use these little red LEDs instead of clear LEDs, was what we wanted. And I thought it looked fine, but I'm not a Santa Fe guy. And they arrived here. People said, dude, those are way too red. And we had to actually go and remake them because the factory couldn't find, their supplier didn't have white LEDs small enough to fit inside this Stratolite beacon. So they went, oh, these red. And they'll be fine with that. So, of course, we discovered that when they arrived. And Jordan, who always discovers the problems, Jordan says, the reason why these Stratolites are red? And then, what? So now going forward, all our Stratolites will be the right color, but it's a production.
So when stuff gets to Canada and you're opening up the boxes and checking stuff out, I'll see photos online of like people with gloves on and taking all the boxes apart. Have there been instances in which there's something, everything's shipped, everything's done, and something's wrong, and you have to open every box?
All the time. It happens at least once a year. That happens.
Wow. What?
Worst was the Canadian National FP9A locomotives we did in 2013. It was a crazy, complicated project, very complicated. There's so many different artworks in the factory because the lettering kept changing. And the first delivery, the A-class engine, 6500 to 6512, came with Canadian National spread further apart on the side of the engine than the rest of the units. So we want to be accurate, so we did Canadian National spread further apart. There's a problem. When we did the artworks, we changed it since then. We used to do like, they say this would be on the artwork of one side, and then on the artwork file, the other side would be upside down, so it looked like that. It makes it much easier to do the artworks when they're upside down.
Yeah. What
we realized, though, is that our eyes wouldn't catch mistakes that were upside down, and always the mistakes were on the upside down side of the artwork. So when they arrived, we discovered that all the FP9A locomotives had Canadian National spread close together, like the C and D and E class, had them close together on one side and far apart on the other. And you look at the artwork was looked at 50 times by so many people, nobody caught it. And they arrived here, and we had to get a bunch of friends in a production line. We had the factory make like 800 new shells, or not, whatever it was, 900 new shells. And we had, sitting on tables, we pulled the old shells off. As we did, the pilots broke off, so we had a pile of pilots, right? And then we had to put the new shells back on, glue the pilots back on if they were broken. It was
Oh my gosh.
A full week of work, full time for like 4 guys, 4 friends of ours, hanging out in our warehouse at the back of the, just with the tables, just doing the production line. We've had to reburn sounds. If we discover that there was a decoder issue that we didn't catch, the factory used the wrong version of the file or something. So you have to open everything up, reburn the sounds, right? And you get 4 people back there, 5 people back there, and you're working for a week. And then the guys who, like the warranty people, like people who send in models saying, why aren't you getting back to me? Well, your warranty team is all of the warehouse fixing models. And your repair is going to have to wait a week because we got to ship out this $500,000 shipment or we're not going to be able to pay our payroll.
So the warranty guys get pushed around a little bit?
They do. We have our fiscal year ends October 31st. So you have a year end is December 31st, obviously, but a lot of companies, their fiscal year end will be a different date. And currently it's October 31st. And we got a shipment in like October 24th. Okay. We had a week to unpack the shipment, inspect the shipment, lay out the shipment, count the shipment, enter it into the system, pick all the orders, double check them, pack them up, ship them out. So yeah, not a lot of warranty got done that week. It said no warranty guys in a warehouse.
Cool.
Yeah. It's like we're a big family here, right? So everybody knows that. First of all, everyone knows that they can be called upon to do anything at some point, if the job requires it. Like, hey guys, we're shooting a video. We need a video. Okay. But more importantly, everyone at Rapido, we all want Rapido to succeed. So we know that if there's a problem with a shipment, we got to like drop everything, fix that, because that we can't send out a model that's got major, right? And everyone wants. I mean, you look at Rapido all over. We've got a UK company now, and we've got a North American team. And North American team, there's about half a dozen guys in the States, four or six. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys in the States. Right? And there's a bunch of people in Canada, except for 4 people. The other 20 odd people are all modelers and rail fans. We are all modelers and rail fans. Right, so everyone on the product, if you cannot be a product developer at Rapido unless because what do you know if you're not?
Exactly.
The warranty guys are all modelers and rail fans, like phenomenal modelers, phenomenal modelers. Mark, who does warranty work, he's a British, what's called a P4 model. He models in exact. It's like Proto 87, but it's Proto Formula scale, like mind-boggling modeling that he does. Right, Bill Schneider right now, he just started his layout this year, and he's passing my layout completion level right now. I mean, he sent me a photo today or yesterday of this finished scene. It's like, how the heck did you do that? It's unbelievable. And he's like, he's motoring on it. So we're all modelers. And so everyone's got. I mean, whenever we need a color sample, we just call Jordan. Jordan, we need Santa Fe yellow. You can't take my models, Jordan. We're gonna take the Santa Fe yellow model. So it's very. I mean, that's the way it is. We're all modelers now. So again, 4 people in the entire company are all modelers.
Cool. Yeah. You brought up the YouTube channel. You guys have been pumping videos out lately at a rate like you guys haven't ever before. Like it's been crazy. Has that been? Like, I know Jeremy's been doing a lot of the videos lately. So have you had to like...
Here's the problem with Rapido. Rapido, as you know, has grown a lot. Okay?
Yeah.
Many years, Rapido was 4 people. It was Bill Schneider, Dan Garcia, Janet Golfman, and me. That was Rapido for years. Then Mike McGrattan came on board, and he passed away a few years later, unfortunately. But it was a very small team. And in the last... We always knew we were going to get there. We always knew we were going to get to that critical mass when we could start delivering more and more models, and then we can grow. And it was always very, very slow because we just didn't have enough money to do that growth, right? So what we were finally able to do, in 2016, we opened up the LRC factory. So we now had 2 factories in China. And that took about a good year to really get up to full speed. And so by 2017, we just started just doing this, right? We just finally started growing.
Yeah.
But we realized a couple years ago, I personally hit a brick wall. Okay. I was doing so much I was doing shooting and editing all the videos, was doing almost all the social media. I was doing all the final steps. I was writing all the instructions, doing the final like project management steps. The project designer would get them all designed, and I was the one checking all the artwork and checking. Like I was totally burnt out. This is late 2018. I was totally burnt out, and I was ready to say, somebody come buy my company. I don't want it anymore, right? So we made a lot of changes then. I got some good advice. I started seeing a business coach who's really good. He's got a lot of experience in business, not model trains, but business is business. If you know how to run a business, you know how to run a business. And he's very good. He's a very empathic person, very good at coaching. So he started coaching me, and I realized I needed to make a lot of changes. The first change was Mohan came on as our chief operating officer, COO. So he started taking a lot of that day-to-day stuff off my shoulders. And then more of the guys started picking up, and then we hired more people. So Josh, turns out Josh can write really good instructions. So Josh started taking over the instructions. He's got the same sense of humor that I do. And he's not everyone's got that literary mind. They can do the grammar, the usage, the good form, etc., right? Making sure it flows properly. Josh can do that. So can Bill. So Bill and Josh started doing more of the instructions. It wasn't just me, right? And then we grew some more. And then, for example, Bobby came on board. And Bobby started as a project manager, but then Bobby actually really likes PR. He likes marketing. He likes that kind of stuff. And so he said, you know what? You're still getting swamped. Why don't I take that PR role, a lot of the instructions? I can do instructions. I can do sales packs. So we started compartmentalizing it, where Bobby was doing instructions and sales packs. We still need the project manager to help with the instructions, but Bobby will polish it off. And Josh still does a lot too, and Bill. But, and Jordan, ages ago, I said, Jordan, his strength is PR. He's good at videos. He's good at social media. He does all our social media, but he was so busy running the warehouse. So we hired a warehouse manager. And that freed Jordan up to do social media. So Jordan was now doing the videos. And then Jeremy came on board, who does video editing. He's brilliant. He's very great sense of humor. So now I've got Jeremy and Jordan doing the videos. Jordan doing the social media. Bobby's doing the newsletter. The newsletter is the biggest thing it took off. So the newsletters and videos, that was 40 hours a week of newsletters and videos. Count it, right? I've also done my other jobs. I was working like 60, 80 hours a week. It was not sustainable. So now everyone's like, we're starting to now divide the company up to people who are getting really good at their job. It doesn't all rely on Jason's brain. If Jason forgets to do something, we have no decoders. The FP7s we did last year, we had no decoders for them because I forgot about the decoders. We had to make I wanted to have more lighting features, but I'd forgotten the factory already made the circuit boards and installed them. So we had to make another circuit board tacked onto the first. Everyone opens up, like, what the heck's this? Why is this garbage? Right? It's because Jason forgot about the DCC. Okay, so it doesn't rely on Jason anymore. I don't have to be a model can theoretically go from start to finish without my involvement. I'm still involved, but it doesn't need me anymore. And that means the company is getting more mature. It can run on its own and it can grow. So a long answer to your short question. That's why Jeremy and Jordan are pumping out videos. We always wanted to pump out that many videos. They didn't have enough hours in a week to do it. Well, now I got somebody whose full-time job is doing videos. So Jordan and Jeremy, we had our PR meetings every Tuesday afternoon. And Jordan said to me kind of despairingly, we have 9 videos we're supposed to film in the next 2 weeks. I said, we're having to film all. I said, no, we're not. Not yet.
Yeah.
But I think that if you want a company to have a succession plan, okay, if somebody comes to me and says, Jason, I'd really like to buy Rapido, right? Because, you're getting older, you want to spend time with your family, whatever else, right? I want to buy Rapido. But I don't want to buy Rapido if everything goes through Jason, right? Because I don't want to work your job. I want to buy a company that I could put in 20 hours a week, and be involved in product decisions and go to China once in a while, stuff like that, and have a lot of fun. I don't want to buy a company where I'm running myself ragged 80 hours a week at work.
Yeah.
So the only way Rapido will be able to move on from Jason is if Jason isn't doing everything anymore. So that's what we've been working on for the last. Now I'm still involved, right? But and very involved in everything. But truthfully, which is never could say before, I could go on a cruise, and I could turn off my email for 2 weeks, and the company would continue. 2 years ago, if I turned off my email for 2 weeks, everything would grind to a halt. So that's how we've been able to grow. And it's also having people like Mohan and Janet. We are what's called the C-suite. I'm the president, Mohan's the COO, Janet's the CFO. We meet every week. We talk more than that. We talk all the time. And having professional people who Janet makes sure that we could pay our bills. She makes sure that we're getting paid by our customers. She's doing long-term planning. She says to me, Jason, we're going to be tight in cash in March. I'm like, it's November, December. What do you mean we're tight? You got to do something because we'll be tight in March, right? And that's how good she is. And Mohan is also very good, where he keeps on bugging me, Jason, we need the silly sounds or something like this for whatever model, right? We need sounds for a model. And I was like, yeah, I'll get to it. And then Mohan will come to me and say, do it now, or we're leaving them off. So, okay, yes, sir. Got it, sir. Got to do it now. That sort of thing.
Does he lean into the computer like that too?
Yes, leans into the computer.
He makes sure you get the point.
We can do 3D. Hey, I got a 3D bus for you. Hang on.
Oh. Ooh. Yeah, I pre-ordered my Rapido bus. I'm ready.
I have not driven that bus in months, and I miss it very much.
Come on.
I need to get a new safety certificate, and with the COVID, bus so hopefully by the end of the winter, I'll be driving.
Cool. So today I checked out the Twitter page and I saw that the UK division is getting a whole array of new products. Yes. And so could I ask what happened to the UK division?
So we've been in the UK since 2014. We delivered our first British model in 2016. And we're really highly regarded there. Our models, we've won model of the year several times. In fact, one of our models won model of the decade. Woohoo! That was our end-scale Pendolino train, the Virgin Pendolino. So we're very well known over there. And we were planning on expanding our UK operations a couple of years ago, but Brexit really threw that for a loop, and we were very, very cautious about it. And so we decided last November, all right, Brexit's going to happen no matter what. We can't put this off any longer. I want to expand the UK operation. And we had meetings to start a new UK company, and I was at with the accountant in Birmingham and all this. And we've had a lot of difficulty opening up a bank account there. That's like hitting our heads against a brick wall. That's been a big challenge for us. But once that should be solved, hopefully, the next couple of months. But we decided we couldn't wait any longer, so we went ahead with it. And Richard Foster came on board, and he was the editor of Model Rail magazine for years and years and years. That's a big UK model train magazine. And he came on as our project guy and our marketing sales guy. And then we hired Andy in the late summer to be our operations guy. So we had our team. Yeah. But you know what? We were debating this like a month ago. Why don't we just launch? We can't take any orders because we haven't got a bank account. Why not just launch? It's about time we launched. So we launched. There you go. So it's a separate company. It's owned by Sedura and me, the same way Rapido is owned by Sedura and me. But it's a separate company, and it's Rapido Trains Limited. And yeah, we got hopefully over time that'll grow to be the size of this company. But we're taking first steps now. Cool. We've got 6 projects we've launched. The 2 buses will be delivered first because the tooling's all done on those, and then follow that by we've got a freight car over there we're doing, and then a couple of steam locomotives and then a diesel. So it's growing. We've got a list a mile long of stuff we want to do. And the cool thing is, Andy and I have known each other for several years. Richard and Andy know each other several years. So it very much is once again a bunch of buddies getting together to start a model train company. I kind of like Rapido, right? Yeah. His buddies who like model trains, making a model train company.
Cool. So I saw in that launch it was 2 steam engines. And I know that with making the American/Canadian steam engines, it's a lot more complex, I'd say. So what's different about the UK stuff versus the North American stuff?
So let me grab a North American steam engine.
Uh-oh.
So this is our Royal Hudson.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And if you look closely, let's see if I can separate this thing without breaking the tab here. This has got 4 gazillion parts on it.
Ah,
Okay.
very accurate.
The only way, it's got 4 gazillion parts on it.
Uh-huh.
This thing cost us, like, you don't know what kind of silly money to tool this thing. Like, it's got 4 gazillion parts on it. Okay. And that cost us a mint. It took like 4 years to develop. Okay. It was huge. And British steam engines are wee little things.
They're all small, yeah.
There are some larger ones. There are some Hudsons and what have you, Pacifics and stuff. But even the Pacifics are like super streamlined, and there's far fewer bits than there are a North American steam engine. So they don't take nearly as long to design, and they're not nearly as. We've already designed, we've delivered 2 steam engines. A 3rd steam engine is leaving the factory for the UK this week. So we've done 3 steam engines in the same time that it took us to do 1 North America. So yeah, it's really quick. We've got our 2nd North American steam engine samples due by Christmas.
Ooh.
I saw we were doing a video chat on Monday, and Colin took me on WeChat over to Zhang, and she was assembling the D10 steam samples. So I said, she's got the samples there. Can you get them us next week? Colin says, no. Because there's a bajillion parts on that too. And he's assembling like 6 samples. It's going to take her 3 weeks of nonstop work to assemble these 6 samples. Yeah, so yeah, I would like to do more steam in North America. We will do more steam in North America. But holy crow, the tooling cost of the Royal Hudson was more than 3 times the tooling cost of our 16XX steam engine we've made for model rail. More than 3 times the cost. Okay, like holy Moses, it's just so expensive. It takes such a long time to develop. Let's get the D10 out, which is a long sought after Canadian Pacific switching steam engine, and it's a 10-wheeler, and then from there we'll see what's next.
So in my mind, the CN 10-wheeler was similar to the CP 10-wheeler, but I take it that's not at all true.
So they are similar, but we decided because the CN, we were going to use the same running gear and chassis, and we were going to make some compromises to use the same one because there is no CN H6 that matches the D10 exactly. When we looked at our orders and saw that the H6 orders were very, very weak, that may never get made. And the D10 orders had really picked up. We said, you know what? We're not going to compromise. We're going to make the D10. But then after the D10 comes out, we're going to tell you guys, okay, everybody, we're going to give you like a month. And then we're going to say, if the orders don't come in, and you've seen the D10, it works, no problems, everyone loves it. If you don't order the H6, we're just not making it. And it may very well be that there's just not enough customers. It's possible. If we were bringing out Canadian steam engines 15, 20 years ago, no problem. We'd be able to sell them all. We'd be selling them, to the end of the earth. But 15, 20 years ago, nobody modeled the 70s. Nobody modeled the 80s. Everybody modeled the 50s. Well, now it's no longer 50s, everything else. It's now like 50s, 70s, 80s, modern day. The last 30 years we call modern day, right?
Yeah.
Modern day. And so you don't have as many steam modelers. So when it comes to a Royal Hudson, like I'm gonna take a leap out there and say that 3/4 of these were bought to go in a display case.
Wow.
That's my guess. 3/4, 2/3, 3/4. Nothing wrong with that. People want a Royal Hudson for display. Nobody wants an H6 to put in their display case. Right? So the order numbers for the Royal Hudson was like way out here, and the H6 is like, what? Because who wants the H6? The guys modeling the 50s want the H6, right?
Yeah.
There aren't enough guys modeling the 50s to make an H6 worthwhile. So I think that if you're a betting man and you were gonna bet at Rapido's next all new steam engine North America, it's probably gonna be something big and shiny, because the big and shiny ones, the ones people want for their display cases, we can up our sales, and we can actually make a profit on it. If we made the H6 tomorrow, Drew, we'd lose money. Yeah, it wouldn't make any money.
So if you had to guess, which one would be the next?
Honestly, I don't know.
Okay.
I think that if you want to be a betting person, there's another engine that looks just like this, but it's not streamlined.
Just take away the Royal and
you have a Hudson. So Hudson is going to be high on the list, obviously. But after the Hudson, like half of it's tooled already, so that's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
But after the Hudson, I honestly don't know. And we'll look at our list from icons of steam, and we'll say, what's like the most gorgeous engine here that people are going to want to show off in a display case? And that's probably the one we're going to choose, because that's the one that's going to sell.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I want to bring up a point to you, and I want to know your thoughts. So one thing I've noticed is that the young generation, like my age and younger, is really into steam because we grew up with the steam heritage railroads. Right. Like the Bachmann moguls have sold, if you look on YouTube, how many shaky cell phone videos have you seen with somebody who's 7 years old who just got a Bachmann mogul and they're speeding it everywhere? So I wonder if there's a dip, and I wonder if there's another side to it.
I think that the trouble is, so yeah, there's interest in steam. So yeah, if we're making a UP844, that's their number of steam engine, right? So make an 844, that's one people see all the time. That's great, right? And I'm sure our model of 2816 is going to do great, because 2816 is back in steam now. It's the model. There's a lot of people, the only steam engine they ever saw was 2816. But I think you're very limited as to what you can bring out. You want to bring out a D10. You want to bring out a CN mic. I don't know if you're going to get the numbers, especially because of the cost. Our steam engines retail for like $600-700, right? They're expensive, and they cost us. Our steam engines cost us. Our unit cost is more than double that of a diesel locomotive. I'm talking about like a Royal Hudson. The Royal Hudson costs us more than double a diesel in terms of the unit cost, right? So it was something I've argued in a couple of interviews before, right? I can tool up this guy. I can tool up 3 of these for the cost of one Royal Hudson. And I tell you that 3 of these is going to end up with 3 times the sales of the Royal Hudson. Right? So the tooling cost for a Royal Hudson or steam engine is very, very high. And that's a real challenge for us, is that you need to have the money to pay it in advance. That's the biggest challenge of the model train business. They say to make a small fortune model railroad, you start with a large one, right? So you've got to spend, your tooling is paid. When we get our final sample, the whole tooling bill is paid, right? So you could be paying $50,000, $60,000, $100,000 on tooling, and that's paid final sample stage. Okay, so now you go. We've now just taken $100,000 and put it over there. Now we're going to make the models, thousands of models that could cost us $300,000, right? That's all paid by the time the model shows up here. So you could have spent $400,000 on one model before it arrives. Then we ship it to our customers, and then they pay us 30 days later, because you give 30 days to stores to pay their bills. So you've got to carry, and we're delivering models every month, right? Every month we got a new shipment of something. Sometimes we've got 2 or 3 shipments a month. We just got the New Haven 8600 cars. They just left here on Monday, and the Horizon cars are like, I think they're in. Here, I'm going to give you some totally up-to-date information as to when we're recording this. Not when it's released, but when we're recording this. As we are talking, the Horizon cars were in Brampton, which is the intermodal terminal. That's about, what way am I facing? That's about 20 miles that way. Okay? That's where they are. So they're going to be here hopefully by Monday. So you've got like 8600s, boom, out the door. Now we've got Horizons, boom, out the door. Right? And then 2 weeks later, the F9Bs are showing up, and F7Bs are showing up. Right? And we've got to ship those out the week after Christmas. So all of those things have been paid for already. right?
Mm.
That's the challenge of a model train business is you have to have it keep on. If we go 3-4 months with no product, we're still paying for stuff.
Yeah.
We're not getting any money in,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's our challenge.
So didn't I hear you say that the M420 was the most expensive to tool?
As the most expensive single version diesel locomotive, yes.
Okay. But then, so what, I guess on that, what was your most expensive to produce if that's not sensitive information?
No, it's the Royal Hudson. Just told you. I mean, before that would be the Canadian because it was a complete train.
Well, yeah.
We're never doing that again. That was too much. But the Royal Hudson was certainly in recent days hugely expensive to make that. Hugely expensive to make that, and but it was worth it. It's a beautiful model. People love their Royal Hudsons, and we learned a couple lessons. The biggest failing of the Royal Hudson was we have what's called a Hall effect sensor, which there's a magnet on the flywheel so that it can time the chuffs to the wheel rotation, and that was held in place with clips. And what we found was when we ship them out from here, so we test them here and they work fine. Mm-hmm. We ship them out to our customers, and UPS or Canada Post or USPS is throwing them all around. Mm-hmm. The Hall sensors would come off.
Yeah.
So it wasn't calibrated anymore, and people weren't getting their synchronized chuffs. So like such a small improvement, our next steam engine is going to have that circuit board screwed into the chassis. So you can throw the thing as much as you want. It's not going to come loose. Right. So we learned a lot of lessons with that robots.
That's what I hate when you see people on forums or whatever say, oh, it's a dud because it's broken at the factory. It's like, no, it's a dud because have you seen your FedEx box? I mean.
What's very challenging, we hear this all the time, is someone will say, well, the outside of the box is fine.
Yeah.
So it could have been damaged in shipping. I can take a carton full of Rapido Trains. I can throw it across the warehouse. It'll bounce off the wall.
As you've done before.
As I've done before, the carton is fine.
Yeah.
You open it up, and you have a bunch of broken bits inside. Our N-scale -8s that we just delivered this year were being thrown around so hard that our packaging was collapsing. It fell a certain way, right on its end. The engine would just go right through and smash the coupler. So we've had to send out hundreds of replacement couplers to people because they were just bang. And we're never putting a locomotive again in PVC plastic packaging. It's never happened before. GMD1, no problem. FL9, no problem. Plastic packaging worked. And here we go. We ship an a -8 and it plows through the packaging. It's a little bit heavier than the FL9.
So it's plastic packaging. Is that the white stuff?
So the plastic is inside an N-scale jewel case. I've got a jewel case right here, right? It's got
that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So it had another plastic inside it, and that was collapsing at the end.
Gotcha.
Right. So but again, this looks great. The outside box looks fine, but inside, kaboom. So we're going to use for our F40s are in production right now. We're going to use thick foam, which won't move, right? And that's just, we have no choice. We learn. Never before did we have a model plow through the plastic, and it happened, right? So it's like stuff happens, and you can't prepare for that. You can't predict it, all right? So we didn't know that was going to happen, and it didn't happen. When they were all arrived here, they're fine. And when they arrive at the customers complain that there's coupler broken.
Cool.
So what are you going to do? These things happen. And I think that a company is measured by how it reacts. So what we did is said, okay, we'll fix anybody's model who's got a problem. Simple as that. And our warranty is known in the industry as being the best in the industry. And I say that
exactly
because in fact, it's too good. We actually we can't be, if somebody like people, we get models filled with cat hair and filled with carpet fuzz. So we've now had to start charging people for some of the repairs because it takes a long time to clean cat hair. All we do is we get somebody sends and says, doesn't work anymore. Okay, send it back. You open it up and it's full of cat hair. Because a lot of people run their models on Bachman Easy Track on the carpet. And so the model, spinning wheels, whatever, it just picks up
worst thing you can do.
anything. Well, but if someone's got nowhere else to run it, they want to run their trains, right? Can't blame them. But that's when we actually made a video. It was Bobby's first video, how to remove cat hair from your gear.
Cool.
Any more questions? We can keep going.
Yeah, let's keep going. So, could I ask if there's any feature, let's say any feasible feature that you could see on a model, what would you want it to be?
I think we've got most of the stuff that we can do for now. I think that I would love to be able to make these things run while keeping the detail level. There's no way. I mean, if you ever look at one of those German buses that run on themselves, like the inside's full of guts. You can't have the full interior and the floor at the correct height.
Yeah.
So I would love to have this thing running with the sound of the Detroit engine in the back, right? I would that would just be amazing. Yeah, that would be amazing. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. What else would I like to see? I'm very happy. The one I really wanted to do was to make the doors open and the steps fold out on a certain model I won't mention, but we couldn't do it. We couldn't do it. So that was. Is
it public right now? Like, is it something that's out, or is it something that isn't?
Something we want to make. Again.
Oh, okay.
And it wasn't feasible, and it got to the point where we'd say, in order to do this, like the cost would be through the roof, and the warranty return rate would be enormous because you press the wrong button, and suddenly you're going along at 80 miles an hour, and all your steps fold out, and you platforms you smash into it, like, oh god. Yeah. So one day maybe. I'm not there yet.
So with lights, I guess one more, what would you like to see question with lights? What's something, lighting boards, I guess, have been a problem, like with the RDCs forced you to invent the magnetic light, or I guess you had it before that.
We had it before.
Yeah.
We did apply that to a powered model for the first time with the RDC. And that was actually just, from my perspective, it doesn't bug me to have lights on when they are there. But some people really want to turn off the lights when they park their trains, and that's like the interior lights or the like number board lights. That was a big thing with the F40. Oh my God, I can't turn the number boards off. Like,
it's not a big deal.
Who cares? No, they can't be on. Only the lead engine had them on.
Exactly.
So our second run F40s had number boards you could switch on and off, right? So we react to the customers. We didn't know that was a big deal, but for nobody in particular, I'm talking to you, Harry Wong, for a few people that was like, gotta turn off the number boards. So we made the number boards turn offable, right? But having the number boards switchable puts them on a function. And if you've got so many lighting features, okay, what are we leaving off to get those number boards turning? If you want to be, if we have the number boards on all the time, with the step lights on all the time, we've got enough functions now to do all sorts of stuff because we just power those off the track. But if you want to make those to be able to turn off, that you're burning up one or two functions. Right? So that's a challenge, is that you've only got a limited number of functions. You can only use those limited functions. And if the more features you add that you can users switching on, that's why the RDCs, it's a customer turns off the with the magic wand, you don't use the controller. There's a reason for that. We ran out of functions.
Exactly.
You've got class lights at both ends. You've got gyros at both ends. You've got ditch lights at both ends. You got headlights at both ends. You know, you got to control that. So they're burning up functions. I think there's what, 8 functions right there. And that's assuming that your ditch lights don't flash. Your ditch lights flash. Your pair of ditch lights is 2 functions.
Exactly.
Right. So when we've got the Amtrak F40, you've got strobes, 2 strobes, 2 functions, 2 ditch lights, 2 functions. You've just burnt 4 functions with your strobes and ditch lights. Then you've got your headlight. Then you've got your number boards. Then you've got your if you want your step lights to be controllable, right? Now you're at 7 functions. Okay. And then you've got your emergency light. That's 8 functions. Okay. What about your backup light? That's 9 functions. Okay, and then I think the Amtrak F40s have markers on the back. Do they not? 10 functions. You've got 10 functions right there. You keep the more functionality you add, you keep running out of functions.
And with the M420, I was sitting down counting all that one day. You have a whole bunch of lights on that. Does that all fit in an 8-function decoder, or did you have to make some kind of solution?
I think we got 10.
Oh, wow.
We got 10 in that. And one of the reasons that we changed back to ESU for that model was that TCS didn't have a 10-function decoder at that point. And that was part of our development process of making the new Rapido TCS decoder. A 10-function decoder would have just taken too long, and we would have to delay production. I mean, they're leaving the factory in about 8 days.
Wow.
20s. I mean, that was actually very quick production. What did we start production? I can't remember, August, September, whatever that was. And we're already leaving the factory now, so that's good. Whereas the Horizon cars took like twice as long as we expected because they ended up taking a long time to make. Also, we've got one British steam engine that's been taking a long time to make. It's just the reason for that is there's so many. It's a huge order, so that's like it's a lot of work, right? So the M420, I'm looking forward to that, and I think the next one we can do will be the ditch light version. But a lot of people want the BC Rail version. The problem with the BC Rail version is like everything's new. You can reuse nothing except the trucks. I'm not kidding. Everything's new. We looked at it when we were designing the M420. We wanted to do BC Rail at the same time, and it was just impossible. So the tooling cost would have been like way over our budget. So what we'll probably do with that one is we'll do it as a taking reservations. If we get enough reservations, we'll make it. And because we essentially have to retool the engine. Like the truck spacing is different. The frame is turned around. The cab's different. The hood's different. Everything's different. All right. So that's BC Rail has a lot of very vocal supporters and a lot of big fans. But BC Rail tended to go their own way. So like the RS18, BC Rail, everything's different. It's all new. The steps are different, pilots are different, hoods are different, everything's different. Which means that we'd have to sell like 2,000 BC Rail RS18s to make it worthwhile. And we could probably sell 600. So that's another example where go find a brass model or kit bash, buy an undecorated Rapido.
Yeah.
Decorate's another issue. The undecorated days are numbered. They're numbered.
Oh, really?
We announced like 6 different variations of undeck for a model, and we get 3, 4, 2.
I thought it would be more.
Oh no. And then we're just putting in the numbers for the new Amtrak and commuter F40s. Sorry, VRE not making it. Unfortunately, there's not enough orders for VRE, but everything else is fine. And like the undecorateds, we're canceling a bunch of the undecks. We may not be able to make any of the undecks because the factory can't make 6 pieces. They can't make 3 pieces, right? If you can't, for 3 pieces, you've got to have a project manager take the time to organize that whole production line for 3 pieces. And it's like, it's ridiculous. What ends up happening is the engineer sits down in his office and makes those 3 undecks, and he's wasting time. He could be designing models. He's making decks for somebody, right? So undecorated models, I understand why the other manufacturers stopped making them, and we're phasing them out. Unnumbered will do. If anyone orders 6 of a Locomotive unnumbered, will do. Undecks, I don't know. I think we may just say forget it. Buy what you want and do what we all used to do. Strip the paint off. Isopropyl alcohol, take the paint off. Right?
Exactly.
So it's an unfortunate reality, but you can't make 6 models. And the guys who want the undecks are all on the forums, and they're all complaining about our terrible service. Right? We had 6. All that was ordered was 6. Thousands of engines, and there were 6. Right? So sorry if it was missing a part or whatever, but there was only 6.
So it's awkward transition, but with the UK market, one question I have is, I've noticed MSRP isn't exactly something that exists over there, because
Oh,
in
yeah.
the US, there's a
They
significant
have
difference between.
called RRP, recommended retail price.
Oh,
Yes, not
well,
MSRP, but RRP.
well, I mean, in the US, there's like a drastic difference between what, say, like Train World sells it for and what like the advertised price is. And in the UK, that it's not really as
There are
big of
some
a gap.
stores that will offer some discounts. Like the big players like a Hattons or Rails of Sheffield's or
Hmm.
Cornell. They'll offer the discount. That depends on the dealer. So we can't tell somebody what to sell their model for, right?
Yeah.
It's against the law. It's against the law to tell somebody you have to sell for this amount.
Hmm.
So we'll say we recommend $300, $400 is the retail price, right? And we give the retailer a discount. The normal dealer discount for Rapido, I don't mind saying, is 30%. That's the normal discount. So there are some retailers who do enough volume that they can give like a 20% discount, and they still make enough money to pay all their staff because they're selling like millions of dollars of trains, right? And it's unfortunately it's not a fair marketplace. You got a guy who's a local hobby shop, and he's turning $500,000 in a year, and he's charging full MSRP. And then you got a big store, wherever it is, somewhere in the States, that's selling $10 million a year, and they're going to be able to afford to give a discount. It's just the market. And so the smaller retailers have to get creative. They have to be really good. They have to have excellent warranty service and customer service. They have to, like, customer service is got to be the key. My personal view is I can get it from here for cheaper, but I can get it from here and get phenomenal customer service. I will go here.
Exactly.
There are some people who, and this really bugs me, so if anyone's watching who does this, don't do it, right? Who walks into the local hobby shop, picks up the model, gets the guy to demonstrate it, and then goes and buys online to save $10. That's a really nasty,
awful thing.
All you have to think, look, I don't like to bring my religion into a lot of my conversation, but I will give a very key tenet of the Bible, right? The key thing in the Bible is do unto others what you would want them to do to you, okay? And would you like it if you were running a store and somebody walks in, wastes an hour of your time, and then goes to the other guy to save $10? That would upset you. So if you wouldn't like it if someone did it to you, don't do it to your local hobby shop. If he's going to take the time to give you good customer service and demonstrate that model, fork over the money and support that business. Okay, you got it, right? And I think if more people would remember that line, right? There was a great sage named Hillel who lived 2,000 years ago, and someone asked him to recite the entire Bible standing on one foot. And he said, no problem. He stood on one foot and said, do unto others as you'd have them do to you, and the rest is commentary. And that's true. And if people would take that attitude when they go to their local hobby shop, we'd have a lot more local hobby shops today.
Exactly.
Right? So that's the thing. And then in terms of discounting, some people are able to do it and some can't. And I try to support my local hobby shops. I'm often on the phone. We'll grab something from George's across the street, or Credit Valley, which is over in Mississauga. And Credit Valley, like I just email Bob and say, I need this, this, and this really quickly because I'm doing a bit of my layout and I need a part. And like 2 days later, it shows up at my door. Right? I won't, because drive out there is like half an hour, 40 minutes for you to get out there, right? No. Just put it in the mail.
So I think you may just be one of the only companies ever to share what their dealer price is, because everybody seems to be so closed off about everything. Like I enjoy how open you are about everything. And I mean, I'm sure you've heard that before, but.
Yeah, I have. Thank you. I appreciate it. I have a funny story. When I had a business partner many, many years ago, and it wasn't working out, and we had to end the partnership. And so I went and met with my lawyer, who's also my uncle, very handy. And I met with a guy who does evaluations for companies and the evaluations, a business consultant. And we were strategizing, what do we do? What do we do? Do we want to get shareholders? Do we want to do this? Do we want to do that? And I remember the business valuations guy is a longtime friend, family friend, says, oh, no, you don't want to share. You don't want to have to report to the board. You don't want to do that. And then my uncle says, you haven't read this guy's newsletters. He says, Jason tells the public more than any CEO I've ever seen tell their board of directors.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for that is because Rapido started as, I want to make model trains. Like, I'm a model railroader who needs model trains. People are wondering why. Right here, here we go. This was our LRC. I started Rapido to make a resin kit of the LRC. Okay, in 2003, I started Rapido. This is a Rage Run model from 2008. But like I started Rapido to make this car, right? And I started it because I needed the model of that car. I knew that nobody else was going to do it. The LRC, we sold more LRC cars than any car except for our lightweight coach and lightweight duplex sleeper. This is our third highest selling car.
Wow.
Okay, we wouldn't believe it. It's been running in one place, 2 provinces in Canada. That's it. Right? Third highest selling passenger car. More than all, like we sold more LRCs than all the different New Haven cars combined. Add that up, right? So anyway, it was a good choice of a product. I wish that all the Canadian models sell that much, but they don't, unfortunately. So it was started as a company by a model railroader who wanted to make model trains because I couldn't get them, and I was like, I realized that I remember a post on one of my, like when I started the Canadian Model Railway discussion forum on Yahoo, and I remember like an early post, like, I've got like 5 cars. It only took me 5 years to build them, and you know, I need to build a whole fleet. And if I continued that route, now I'd have like 25 cars. It's still not enough to run
still a lot,
but it's not enough to run the Kingston sub. You need like 100 cars to run the Kingston.
Yeah.
So as a company started by a model railroader, just for other model railroaders, I don't mind telling people the stuff we're going through. And it's opened up a level of transparency in this industry that never existed before, because when Rapido came along, there were no companies run by model railroaders like that. There were companies that were started by model railroaders in the 30s and 40s, but they weren't run by modelers in 2003, 2004. They were already second, third generation, right? And today, I mean, I'm never passing this company to my kids. I'm not passing. My kids are not model railroaders. They may turn into model railroaders. Boaz loves model railroading, but he doesn't have like, we'll be working on the layout together. He'll be building a structure. And after an hour, he'll say, yeah, I'm done for today. I'm saying, dude, I got like 6 more hours in me. Okay?
Exactly.
I can do this for 6 more hours. After an hour, he's enjoyed his time. We're done. Right? My daughter, she's very handy, whatever, but they're not model railroaders. Okay. And you can't hand that passion to the next generation. You know that, like, I don't know the exact statistics, is roughly half of all businesses fail in the second generation, 90% fail in the third generation, and most of them survive if they reach the 4th generation, because then they know what to do. Right? Yeah. In the blood, right? But I think that Rapido, for it to remain successful, needs to continue to be run by modelers. Even if I'm not here, if I sell the business or retire or whatever, there's 20 model railroaders here running the company, right? And if we get to a point where the company is run by somebody who just sees it as a way to generate profit and doesn't have the passion for it, then I think the company is going to suffer. It's really going to suffer. You have to have that passion for it, right? You need to have that drive. You need to, when I look at this bus, I get excited. The reason I say it is I've done most of the models I need for my layout, right? I just need now the S13 switcher and a couple of others, and I've got like the bulk of them. But I always wanted to have a T.
Exactly.
I always wanted that. So recently, that's been like one of the models that's made me go, wow.
I did a good job.
Did a good job. It's even got the water jug bumpers there.
And with little details like that, like you put forks and knives and rings around plates, like that's ridiculous. And not that, because nobody else has been able to own a factory and force them to go through with that. But
it's not a forcing, it's a negotiation. It's always a negotiation because the factory has to make money.
Yeah.
Okay. And so we'll often end up, the factory will say, I'm taking this project and I'm putting it first. So like we're doing a whole bunch of more buses right now, and Huang hates buses because they take forever. And his margin and then is pretty low because of all of those striping and logos and whatever, all the route names and all that stuff. So that just gets pushed over here and just takes longer. And he actually came to me and said, I need something that's gonna, like, I need to make something now. The bus is taking too long. I got to deliver product. And he said, let's make something that like we already made before. So we took a product that we've delivered in the past. And we said, okay, make these. So, and then he said, I need more. So we took another product. We said, okay, make these. So at some point, like around April or May or March, something like that, we're just going to say, hey, everybody, they're here. Order now because we have models here. And then we chose really popular models and we underproduced them. So we know they're going to sell out.
Right? Oh, they're yet to come.
They're yet to come. We may have done them in the past, but these are new variations or new run or whatever. And we're just going to say, they're here. And sometimes we have to, and we don't normally like to do that. But the factory said, these are taking forever. We need something to make that we can make more quickly. So we said, make these. Okay.
So are you allowed to disclose whether it's a locomotive or a passenger car or just rolling stock?
I can disclose nothing.
Oh.
We will have two products.
Two products
arriving in the winter, late winter, early spring. And we're gonna when they're on the water from the factory, we're gonna say, hey, look at this. And we've made X number, so first come, first serve. And we did that once. What car was that we did? It was the Northern Pacific boxcars, the first Northern Pacific boxcars. We made an extra like 1,500 cars because we thought the order numbers were low. We had extra 1,500 cars. We normally don't make that many cars just to have, right? They were gone 4 days. It's gone. And that was the only time we could justify. We normally don't make a second run quickly. That time we said, we'll make a second run because a lot of people didn't get it. And it's just that we weren't on the Northern Pacific radar. We'd never made a Northern Pacific accurate Northern Pacific prototype before. So we weren't on the radar, right? And now suddenly, oh my God, these are amazing. Oh, they're sold out. So that Northern Pacific boxcar did very well. And then the USRA boxcar, that totally sold out too. Very quickly. We now make for freight cars, we make extra. Not that many, but we make extra, and they normally sell out. The FlexiFlows, all the extra sold out within 2 weeks. Yeah, so that's cool. Now we like to have as empty as a warehouse as possible. You don't want to have a warehouse full of models.
So has there been a manufacturer who blatantly or not has copied something that you guys have done?
Oh, absolutely. I'm not going to mention any names. Oh, absolutely.
Whoa.
We brought out the battery-powered lighting. Not only did they copy our lighting, they copied the shape of our wand. Like, totally copied everything. What are you going to do? It happens. We got it out first. Right? And so it's fine. It's happened before. We've had manufacturers like, use our terminology. We'll talk about, we use it. I don't want to say any specific words. I don't want to mention anyone, but we'll use a certain terminology in a video or in our PR, and then another manufacturer starts using the same terminology. It's like, okay, no problem, whatever. It's like, if we thought this stuff up ourselves, right?
Yeah.
If you got to copy what we do,
go ahead.
Whatever. Right. So that happens sometimes. But I think our relationship with most manufacturers is cordial. But the truth is that we've grown. So we're going to step on some toes. It just happens. Yeah. Right. I mean, when we announced the bi-level cars, the Bombardier bi-level cars, obviously Athens were making those for a long time, but dude, the 20-year-old tooling, not 2021 tooling. We can do 2021 tooling on those with accurate rivets, no rivets, different window arrangements, different door placements with the wheel accessible or not accessible. Like this, one window or two window on the cab. That's what those cars deserve. Now, whether it'll be successful or not, don't know. Yeah. I don't think that commuter modeling is as prevalent as, branch line modeling type thing, the local way freight. So I don't think we're going to sell gazillions of those cars, but we're making them because they're so common and we need a 21st century model of those cars.
Exactly.
All right. There you go.
So what's your favorite menu? Because I assume that your layout's not just Rapido stuff, because there's some things that you need from other people. My cushion just fell down. What's your favorite locomotive manufacturer besides Rapido that you've had to use?
Honestly, all my locomotives are Rapido.
Oh, really?
I think so. I've got the Bowser big MLWs. Those are nice. Those are nice. And I've got a couple of their SD40s, the Canadian SD40s, dash 2s. Those are nice. So I like the Bowser locomotives. That's my favorite. Yeah, I'd say my favorite manufacturer apart from Rapido is probably Bowser for locomotives. For freight cars, it's probably gonna be Tangent. Tangent and Moloko do really nice freight cars, and I'm really happy with those models on my layout. In fact, there's way too many American models on my layout. Now that we're manufacturing more Canadian stuff, more freight cars, we'll have more Rapido freight cars on the layout. But right now, I've got all these 3,800 hoppers and gondolas like taking up the place, right? And that's like the only Canadian models I got, right? My layout. So I need a bunch of 40 and 50 foot box cars, Canadian box cars. So we'll get there eventually.
Gotcha.